Ladies and gentlemen, in the realm of international politics, every word carries power, especially when spoken by leaders of great nations. Recently, a fiery statement by former U.S. President Donald Trump created a storm across media platforms worldwide. His comments directed toward India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi sparked debate, outrage, and deep concern. The question on everyone's mind is, did Trump actually threaten Modi? Well, let's break this down, not through emotion, but through analysis, context, and understanding. Because in global politics, what's said is important, but how and why it's said is even more significant. Perhaps not directly, but his tone carried an undeniable edge of pressure and dominance. It was less a threat, more a reminder of how differently both nations view power. Trump's statement is a wake-up call for the world to understand that true leadership is not about threats, but about respect. And in that sense, India's calm, silent strength proved mightier than Trump's loud declarations. Would you like me to expand each key point by 200 more words, as in your past requests, to make it a full-length 10-12-minute speech? Trump's controversial statement regarding Prime Minister Narendra Modi did not appear in isolation. It emerged from the heated atmosphere of his campaign trail, where his speeches are often charged with nationalism and self-praise. During one of his rallies, Trump mentioned India while recounting his tough dealings with foreign leaders, boasting about how he made other nations respect America again. In that very context, he referred to Modi and suggested that if India didn't cooperate with U.S. demands, particularly on defense, trade, and oil imports, there would be a price to pay. This phrasing immediately raised concerns. Was it a diplomatic reminder or a political threat disguised as bravado? Analysts believe it was typical Trump style, blending negotiation with intimidation. Yet the remark revealed something deeper about his worldview. That foreign policy is a business deal, not a partnership. For him, diplomacy isn't built on shared values or trust, but on leverage and loyalty. In reality, Trump's use of the phrase India would pay echoed his corporate background, where deals are won through dominance. However, applying that mindset to a sovereign ally like India was risky. It suggested an imbalance of respect, as if India's friendship was conditional upon compliance. Political experts noted that his words reflected not just his individual personality, but a broader American expectation of global obedience. Trump's audience, cheering for his tough talk, may not have realized the diplomatic shockwaves it sent. For India, a country that values dignity and equality in partnerships, such language struck a nerve. It revived old memories of Western condescension, the notion that powerful nations can dictate terms to others. What Trump perhaps intended as a show of strength instead exposed the fragile ego behind his rhetoric and the growing divergence between his idea of leadership and India's vision of mutual respect. India's concept of strategic autonomy has been a cornerstone of its foreign policy since independence. The idea is simple yet powerful. India will cooperate with the world, but never at the cost of its sovereignty. When Trump's remarks implied that India might face the consequences for not aligning fully with U.S. policies, it wasn't merely a political jab. It was seen as a direct challenge to that very independence. And for decades, India has maintained a delicate balance between major global powers, forging ties with both the U.S. and Russia, engaging diplomatically with China, and building strong relations with the global South. Trump's rhetoric attempted to disrupt that balance, framing India's partnership as one-sided, where Washington dictates and New Delhi obeys. But India is no longer the passive player it once was. It is the world's fastest-growing major economy, a defense power, and a voice for developing nations. When Trump's words surfaced, Indian policymakers quietly reinforced their position. India chooses what serves its interests best, not what pleases others. This stance isn't arrogance. It's maturity born of decades of navigating complex alliances. Experts noted that Trump's tone echoed Cold War-style thinking, where nations were forced to choose sides. However, India's 21st century diplomacy rejects such binary politics. Whether it's buying oil from Iran, defense systems from Russia, or strengthening Quad ties with the U.S., India follows a multi-aligned approach. Trump's pressure, therefore, tested not just India's patience, but also its principle of sovereignty. The Indian government, through silence and firmness, reminded the world that respect is earned through equality, not intimidation. In fact, Trump's words inadvertently gave India a diplomatic advantage. They united domestic opinion across political lines. Both supporters and critics of Modi agreed on one thing: India cannot be treated as a client state. This internal unity sent a powerful signal abroad that the days when any nation could lecture or threaten India are long gone. When Trump's controversial statement made global headlines, many expected Prime Minister Narendra Modi to issue a strong response. Yet, Modi chose a path of complete diplomatic restraint, a silence that was neither weakness nor fear, but a strategic message wrapped in composure. In the world of international relations, where every reaction is dissected, silence can be the most powerful statement. By not responding to Trump's provocation, Modi maintained the dignity of India's leadership and refused to let the matter escalate into an unnecessary public spectacle. This approach reflects a deep understanding of diplomacy, that emotions and ego have no place in global politics. Instead of reacting impulsively, Modi allowed the world to interpret the contrast. One leader loud and confrontational, the other calm and controlled. Behind closed doors, however, Indian diplomats and foreign ministry officials worked quietly to reaffirm that India's foreign policy stands on the foundation of mutual respect, non-interference, and national interest. Such composure isn't new for Modi. He has often handled provocation with silence, letting results speak louder than reactions. Whether dealing with aggressive media narratives, global criticisms, or even Chinese provocations at the border, Modi's philosophy has been consistent. Respond through action, not words. This maturity is what separates statesmanship from showmanship. Moreover, this episode reinforced India's image as a stable and confident power on the world stage. By not engaging in a rhetorical battle, Modi projected India as a nation that refuses to be drawn into drama. His silence became a lesson in strategic communication. That restraint can sometimes deliver a stronger diplomatic blow than any statement ever could. It conveyed an unspoken message to Trump and the world alike. India listens, observes, and decides on its own terms. Donald Trump's approach to foreign policy has always blurred the line between politics and performance. His speeches are often crafted not for diplomats, but for crowds, full of drama, exaggeration, and bold claims meant to excite rather than enlighten. When he spoke about India and Modi, it was less about addressing international relations and more about showcasing his image as a strong negotiator to American voters. Trump's strategy thrives on optics, projecting dominance even if it strains delicate partnerships. But this performative style of politics, while effective at home, can be damaging abroad, especially when it involves a major ally like India. In reality, real diplomacy thrives on nuance, patience, and respect, not applause lines.